Here we are. We're live. Welcome back to the Trial and Error podcast. We are live. I'm getting my Instagram audience up and running here. Um,
Instagram, Instagram.
all right.
I love it.
So first things first. My name is Brian, and we got Fearless. Um,
Hello, how's it going?
on today's episode, we're going to talk about okay. So basically, Fearless is going to talk about accomplishing the thing, and we'll explain what the thing is in the show. And basically, now what? So we accomplished the thing. Now what? And this is going to be about what happens when you meet a goal. What's the next step? So we're going to be a
Yeah.
little bit more free form. We're working without an outline here. So that's what we got. I'm going to go ahead and roll the intro and we're going to get into the thing. All right. Trial and Error, the podcast where you mess up until you make it.
I like it, man.
My name is Brian. I own a marketing agency called I Sell Words. I'm hitting a little bit of a pivot, but it's been something I've been kind of telegraphing. If you've been following me on socials, I wanted to try kind of a DIY marketing agency. What that means is I provide you the tools and the resources so that you can be proficient in your own marketing without having to outsource it. And then when you scale up to the point where you need to outsource it, you have the working knowledge to make the right hire. And so, to that end, I've created a couple of different marketing packs that I'm gonna be, making public here over the next few days. They give you all the stuff you need for social media, um, email, newsletters, the whole shebang and bang. It tells you how to format it, how to structure it, and even gives you some plug and play things so that you can just copy and paste and drop your stuff in there. And
Mm.
so I'm making those available. I have them on my Gumroad site. So we'll get I'll go ahead and show that here pretty shortly. Um I'll show the Gumroad site if you're interested, if you want to get started with your own marketing, and you need my brains along the way. I'm still available for coaching or whatnot, but I also want to teach people how to do their own marketing. And so that's kind of the pivot we're hitting with I Sell Words a bit,
Mhm.
coaching and teaching you how to do your own thing, and get started with that. So Fearless, what's new with you?
So with myself, I just completed my 101, actually 100 live teaching, coaching, and Q&A. When we say 100 days, we mean 100 days of like live every single day, no days off.
Hmm.
And then so if you count the intro, which I didn't really count for the show, and the encore, we actually have 100 and what is it? 102
Okay.
or whatever. So but anyway, so we knocked that out, and that's not complete. So that's kind of what we're talking about now, which is what's next, whatever. I gave out all of the free material that we could possibly do. Out of that, we're going to do a book club, which is kind of like bring your own books. And the reason why I wanted to do a thing of bring your own books is because not everybody's into the same type of stuff. And
Right.
people ask me all the time, like, how do you know about which books are good, and how are you so in tune with all these different authors? And that's the reason why. It's because I love being a part of so many different. If I read a book or whatever, it might talk about 3 or 4 different people. So I'll go in, read about those 3 or 4 different people, and then I'll buy 3 or 4 people's books. So out of that one book that I read, I bought 3. So if
Okay.
I'm reading these other books over here, and that 3 turns into 6, that 6 turns into 18, and so forth and so on. So that's why I know so many different authors. I'm in love with so many different genres of books or whatever. And that's the reason also how and why I can read a book in a day. You know what I'm saying? Because I that's just kind of my thing. And so that's kind of what we're doing right now. The name of the and don't and try not to smile either, Brian. You're
Okay.
already doing it. All right. So the name of the book club is Fluxinocine, Fluxinocine, Helipification, the Supreme Intergalactic Bibliotroglodyte Book Club. Yes, that is a whole entire mouthful or whatever. Troggies for short.
All right.
So yeah, but so yeah, that's the one thing that we're gonna kind of do to keep things going. But I really want to get my coaching off the ground as well, whatever. And this time I am going to be charging because I did it for 200 days straight. Again, question Q&A, live Q&A. So nothing was pre-recorded. Nothing. The only thing that we had pre-recorded was the is my outro and intro. That's it. Everything else, when I hit that live, it meant live.
And I want to give a little bit of shape and context to that because, and this is kind of the influence behind why we're saying you accomplished the thing. Now what? This was a goal that Fearless set 100 over 100 days ago, where he's like, I'm a live stream for 100 days. To give you a little bit of backstory, Fearless and I helped Fearless get his live stream set up, and once he got the equipment set up and we got all the other pieces set up, he dove head first. And so it's been 100 days straight of live streaming, and so in that time he's gone through a lot of the even the technical stuff that live streamers go through.
Yes,
he's truncated all of that and experienced all that over a course of 100 days, as opposed to if you're going once a week, this might be 2 or 3 years worth of live streams. And so he's truncated all that knowledge and all the trial and error stuff into 100-day grind. And so a lot of times, the reason why we wanted to talk about it is a lot of times once you reach the mountaintop, you find the next vista to climb. And so a lot of times, we're trying to find the next vista. Sometimes you end up resting on your laurels. And
I don't want to do that. I do not want to do that.
And what happens is a lot of times you meet that goal and you end up, it's almost like, what was it? In the Dark Knight Returns, or not Dark Knight Returns, that's the comic book. In Dark Knight Rises, where Bane has said, victory has defeated you.
Yes. You know what? I got to tell you, I can pause right quick. That whole, that monologue, that monologue that he gave during that fight scene was the best written stuff that I have seen in years. Even not just seen, but read. When he told him, when he throws all those things and the smoke bombs and all that, and he tells him that, what did he say? Objectality and delusion or whatever. That's for people who are uninitiated. Yeah. But you and I are initiated, aren't we, Mr. Wayne?
Yeah.
And it just let me know, and to me, that's what success is. I really want you guys to hear me on that. To me, that's what success is. Success is not a bunch of illusions. It's not a bunch of these placates or these platitudes that we say, like, oh man, you just gotta buck and grind. Like, no, to me, it's for the initiated. And you get initiated by getting your ass in there, getting to work. And you find out, again, kind of like what we're talking about now, the trial and error period of it. Like, how do you still move when you have no idea what the hell you're doing? How do you move when you're live and your equipment goes out?
Yeah.
What happens when you're just learning and you got 4,000, almost 5,000 friends, but only 4 people show up every single night? Right. You know what I mean? Like, and again, having different trainings. So it wasn't that I just showed up every night. I showed up for an hour and a half every night from 8:30 to 10 o'clock, and sometimes over that, teaching, training, and Q&A live. During my 12th episode, we were talking about character, where somebody came in and told us that she was infected with HIV purposely by a guy that she was a guy that she was seeing for some time.
Mhm.
So he knew he had it and infected this woman on purpose. On purpose. And then that's how we learned that Nebraska is one of those states where they don't have to tell you
Right.
that they have HIV. They don't have to say anything. And he knowingly infected this woman, and there's nothing. And then come to find out, he's done it to several women. So that was the first time that I was like I didn't even get to finish what we were talking about because we talked about that for so long. And then it wasn't until like the next day, I was talking to Jessica about it, and she said, "Hey, the next time something like that happens, touch on it, but you need to move on because at that there's nothing else you can do. You know, y'all stayed on that same subject for all that time." Said Fearless, like you got to stay focused in what you're talking about. Yes, bring it up. Hey, I'm sorry to hear that. Is there any information you can give us for us to learn for something like that? Wonderful. Take it as a learning situation and keep it pushing. So after that, even when things popped up again, I was able to kind of, hey, what can we learn from this? And then go back into what we're talking about.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so, like, yeah, man, that's again, you don't get again. I think if you did something like that, maybe a couple times a week or whatever, eventually it'll take you, you know, maybe a year or two to get there. To figure out what do you do when somebody comes into your life and says something like that.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's the reason why I love, and I even mentioned several times when we started, while the Trial and Error podcast meant so much for me doing that, because it's all about trial and error. So I would have to consistently remind myself, hey, trial and error, trial and error, trial and error. It's not about failure. It's not about giving up. It's trial and error. What works versus what doesn't work. You know, how do you get your stuff? I mean, so a lot of the stuff that you taught me and trained me on is stuff that I had to figure out while I was doing it.
Yeah. I want to build on that. Continue. Go ahead.
Please. No,
So,
I'm done. Go ahead.
So, and this is kind of the thing. Everything looks good on paper, right? Everything sounds good in theory. A lot of times it's almost two stages to learning, where you learn the technical, where somebody sits down and explains it to you, or you read it, and then you learn the application side of it. And then you figure out where the two things meet. Because even when you're working with like online platforms and whatnot, things change overnight. So the thing I can tell you about Facebook, or the thing I can tell you about Instagram, or the thing I can tell you about live streaming on TikTok, that changes almost on a daily basis. And so you have to adjust. And the only way you learn it is you try it out and say, okay, we tried it. This worked, but this did not work. And then you add that to your toolkit, and you know to account for that. Like right now, Fearless and I are dealing with this thing with Facebook where it's changed how live streams work, where you can't go public with your live streams, where it used to be you could be public with your live streams. You could be public with your live streams from the jump. Now you have to go back and make them public afterwards. And so it added a hitch to the way we do things, but you have to adjust to it, because we can't see, like in the StreamYard interface, we cannot see who's commenting on our live stream and who's not. And so sometimes we'll get out of the live stream and see, oh man, we had all these people commenting. Well, that's part of the game. And so that's what you have to do. We would not have known that. This would not have been evident to us had we not been actively doing this thing. And so that's what I'm saying. There's that 2 layers of learning. And a lot of times people get caught up in that first layer of learning, where it's just watching videos and reading more and talk to somebody. You maybe hire a consultant, you maybe hire a coach, but then you go back to watching and learning and watching and learning, and you never get to the doing part. And then, and what I'm saying is Fearless jumped right into the doing part. And so that made what we had discussed and all the other things in terms of research and studying and stuff, that only strengthened that, because then he had a real world application. Um,
Right.
when you're developing staff out here, a lot of times, you don't learn. We used to joke when I was doing youth care. We used to joke like, okay, so now you're out of training, so now you can learn actually how to do the job.
Yep. Yep.
And because youth care in the training teaches you the technical application of it, but now we got to go to the real world application where you create your own style and integrate what you've learned from training and build and integrate your own style, and now you have a tool that you can use every single day.
I was coaching a young man in learning how to drive, and one of the things that I told him I was helping him with his with the written part, right?
Yep.
And now you can actually do that at home. Before, like you had to just read the book, which he did, and we were taking the test. Man, I failed it horribly. And I was telling him, I'm like, dude, in the real world, you don't do this. This is dangerous.
Yeah.
But in the actual testing part, no, you have to write what they tell you to write.
Right.
But in the real world, you do not do that. And you have to use that application, but it has to be a practical application. When do you use these things? When do you say, you know what, now this isn't going to work for me, this and the other, whatever. And sometimes you may have to stop driving. I mean, unfortunately, that does happen.
Right.
That unfortunately does happen. But from a coaching standpoint, though, I wanted to kind of touch on something that you said too. Is what have you already done? And that's before you hire. Let me write that down because I have to. Okay, before you hire, a marketing strategist or a digital person or a therapist or a life coach or whomever, the first thing that we're going to ask you is, what have you already done?
Right.
What have you already tried? And I'm going to tell y'all like this. The one thing that I hope to God you remember is, what have you already done? Because that's the first question we're going to ask you. Like, what have you already done? What have you already tried? And from that point, we can help you. But if you haven't done anything, bro, that is horrible.
Well, and I think that's the thing where when we ask you, like when I take you on as a marketing client, right? And the thing I'm going to ask is, what do you have experience doing? If I'm taking you on as a marketing client that's launching a business, I'm going to ask you about what your previous work experience is, because I'm trying to find what knowledge, like what's your base level of knowledge and how have you applied it, and then I'm going to try to connect it to what our current efforts are. Right. Mm-hmm. So if you say that you've done voiceover work for this company, that means that you probably would be good at the podcasting, or you could do your own voiceover work. You see what I'm saying? And so by finding what you've already done, I can actually start building a bridge to connect the two things. Because one thing is, and it's the sphere of competence. It's the sphere of your competence, right? I'm trying to connect as many things to the realm of your competence as possible, because you're not competent in everything, right? Mm-hmm. You can't be and that's the thing a lot of business owners make. Like, I even made the mistake, I know how to market. That means I know how to launch a business. No, there was a lot of hard lessons in launching a business. Mm-hmm. Just because I knew how to market things doesn't mean I know how to launch a business. And so there's a whole nother layer of learning that had to happen under that. Mm-hmm. And so that wasn't, when I started it, that wasn't, being an entrepreneur was not really in my wheelhouse or in my realm, my sphere of competence. I had to actually build out that competency, and I'm still building out chunks of. There's still massive mistakes that I make that I'm walking back on a daily basis, but I'm growing from them. And so what I'm saying is this: a lot of times, just because you're a great doctor, that doesn't mean that you're a good lawyer. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And so what happens is, a lot of times, I try to connect what you're already competent in and what you're trying to learn. So there's a little bit of a bridge, and you can use the skills that you already have to get competent in this new thing. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And so and I ask questions like, what did you do before? What have you done similar? What's your experience before this thing? And how can we leverage that experience so that you can learn the new thing?
Mm-hmm. And I mean, yeah, from a coaching aspect, that's all I'm asking as well is, if you have a dream, goal, aspiration, or a problem, the first thing I'm asking is, okay, well, what have you done previous? What have you done for this, whatever? Who have you asked about this before? Who have you gone to talk to already? Because again, and one of the things I love to do with people is kind of run that diagnostic, but that audit. But the great thing about it is that sometimes you don't need coaching. You may not need therapy. You
Right.
might just need a different way of looking at that same situation. And that's what I'm good at. So and again, but I have to trial and error just like everybody else. That's how I gain experience.
Right. And that's the reality. Like I said, we've talked about this 1,000 times, right? That's why we named it the Trial and Error Podcast. Like
Mhm.
getting that experience on you. Fearless and I have a disagreement about, because I'm really fine with using the word failure because that's how I frame things for me. That's how my mind frames things. I tried it, I failed, I'm gonna try it again. That's not an end point. That's not a destination. That's just something that happened along the way in my mind. Fearless brought it to my attention that for a lot of people, they're not conditioned to see failure as a path along the way. They see it as the destination or end point or
Mhm.
terminus. And so I'm real careful about using it. But when you talk to me, I say trial and error. I always associate error with I tried this thing, I failed it, I'm gonna try it again. Because
Mhm.
I've hit my head so many times that I'm not scared of hitting my head. And I'm riddled with anxiety about big swings and big leaps, but I still take them.
Mhm.
And I still I still walk the tightrope without the net if I need to. And hopefully I can bounce. I can bounce high when I hit the ground. And so
Right.
for me, I incorporate that side of it. But that's just part of the natural learning process. And I think we shortchange that learning process a lot of
Mm.
time. We shortchange that learning process because we try to avoid the error. We try to avoid the thing not working or blowing up in our face. And by that, we're skipping very, 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 very important lessons along the way.
Okay.
But that's just my take on it.
No, I love that. I love that. So, like, yeah, I think that doing these 100 episodes, a few of the things that it taught me, because I wrote yesterday, I did 101 um, episodes, and then I wanted to so yesterday I did the 101 episode based on the 100 episodes that I did and
Uh-huh.
everything that I learned during that process. Right. So it's not that I just did it. It's what did I learn from all of this? And one of the things that I learned is that you're never gonna be as ready as you think you are.
Hmm.
You're never gonna be as ready as you think you are. And with that, I began to understand like why so many people don't just jump off that proverbial bridge and just go for it. Because a lot of us think that because we can't see what's going to happen, what happens if we fail? Well, yeah, what happens if I fail? But
Right.
again, you're not going to because you haven't succeeded.
Right.
The
You ain't
only
earned that
way
right.
for me that you haven't earned, thank you. You haven't earned the right to call yourself a failure because you haven't succeeded. You know what I'm saying? Like seriously, I could tell you how many times we've messed up based on how many times we succeeded.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Again, so I can go back and forth or whatever on that, but at the same time, we still kept going, no matter what.
Yeah.
And that was the thing, bro, is that you keep going, no matter what. So why do we not show up for different shit? Here's the thing: everybody has their own reason. What I like to call excuses. I'm collecting them as we speak or whatever. And here's the thing: I don't care why you don't show up or why you didn't. I care about what are we gonna do right here, right now, moving forward.
Yeah.
As a life coach, that's my job. A therapist can take you back and help you uncover and discover why you are doing this and the other, or why you feel stuck and this and that. And that's cool. Do you? But from my standpoint, as a philosopher, as a life coach who teaches, trains, and sells perspective, I'm only looking at perspective. That is
Right.
it. You know, where are you now? Yeah, you can go to a therapist to take you back to where you've been. I can go there too. I just don't want to.
Right.
I'm just gonna be honest with you. I don't want to. Like I'm not the guy for you on that. But I
Well,
do know a great therapist.
Well, and I think that's also not only because we're not even talking about you have the competency, you could literally go out and get the masters and do other stuff. You have the knowledge if you wanted to, but you also put barriers around what you actually want to do and what you want
Correct.
your practice to be on that side of it.
Yes.
And so just
Yeah,
because you have it in your wheelhouse, you have the ability to go do it doesn't mean that that's always what you need to be doing.
correct. Correct. And the other thing that I hold on because I wrote a bunch of these things down as we were talking about it yesterday or whatever. So the other the other thing was that everybody wants to be liked all the
Yeah.
time. And there was a book that I read called The Courage to Be Disliked. And
Yeah.
I'll probably buy that book and read it again, which will be my fourth time reading it. I don't read books that many times. I do not.
Right.
Once I get it in, it's in, and then I don't need to read it again. I got it. This book has been so good that I have to go read that again. I don't have a choice but to go read it again. Um, but it was that good. And the problem is that everybody wants to be liked all the time. So we have this people pleasing bone inside of us, and we're cool with people pleasing everybody else, except for when it comes to ourselves. And that's one of the things that I've actually seen. Another problem that not problem, but another thing that I've noticed during this 100 days is that the problems that we have, not only are they self-inflicted or self-kept, I'll say
Mhm.
self-kept, but they're the same problem that you've had most of your life for the most part.
Right.
It's the same problem. You know what I'm saying? And the issue is that you don't need sympathy, you need structure, you need strategy, right? But another thing that I've noticed is that we don't want to give some of that up because once you alleviate one issue, what happens if that issue is your identity?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And again, that changes your whole entire structure of the excuses now that you no longer get to make. Like
All right.
I know, like go ahead,
No, I'm listening because there's a story I want to tell behind that, but I want you to finish that piece.
but like I grew up as a ward of the state for the most part, right? And and a lot of our lives are based on the stories that we tell, not only ourselves but other people, right? Especially those stories that you tell repetitively.
Right.
Those stories that you don't even have to think about telling, they just come right on out your mouth because you told them so often. It's to so many different people. So you've gotten good at it. So when I talk about that, the one thing that I do is I usually flip the ending, which is I had a very fun, amazing childhood, despite me growing up as a ward of the state. I met some amazing people that are still my friends and father figures to this day at 46 years old. You know what I'm saying? So the experience I had living or being a state ward, I can't say the same for somebody else. Somebody else may have had the same exact story, but it's what
Yeah.
I took from it and how I reframed it, how I restructured it. It's what propelled me and kind of helped me to compartmentalize all the shit that I actually went through that wasn't always the best,
Right.
right? And so that was one of the biggest things that I also started to understand too in doing this 100 days of coaching, 100 days of live, 100 days of Q&A, is that we are all I ain't gonna lie to you. I think a lot of it, like I said before, is not sympathy, it's strategy. And that is strategy, what I would like to call stratology,
Mhm.
which is a mixture of strategy and philosophy. what you're doing and why you're doing it, right? Where you are and how did you get here, right?
Right.
And then not only that, but where are you going? And that's the strategic part about this is where I am. How do I get from here to there? And a lot of that is going to be based on your strategy and the philosophy that you have for yourself. One of the things that we talked about in great detail, and I did a kind of like a Q&A on day 99, I think, of asking everybody, hey, why did you guys keep coming back here?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Why did you keep coming back? What made this something that you would show up every night for an hour and a half? Every single night. And one of the biggest things that people said, and again, because like I told you, bro, I wrote everything down, but one of the things that people said was that they got out of it was number one, free coaching, number one, right? But here's the things that we talked about. They said, well, they love that there was no sugarcoating. Everything was just being blunt, straight up. They love the fact that, and here's some of the things that they loved hearing about. They loved the fact that they had a support system. They look forward to unwinding at night, which is crazy. I never thought about that.
Right.
One person said, my boy Jerry said, loyalty to my friend. Thank you so much. And here's some of the things that people talked about, right? Boundaries, principles, beliefs, saying no to people, and also having a nightly routine that we went through every single night. The power of saying no, boundaries, the hero's journey, helping people rebuild or build self-confidence. I was like, wow, out of all the stuff that we talked about, these are the things for the most part that people really gravitated towards.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So again, we did this whole thing with talking about our values, our principles, belief systems. How do they work? How do you rechange a belief? How do you restructure one? The rules of engagement. Rules of engagement are those are things that if you have principles, the rules of engagement, they drive your principles. Your principles drives your values.
Right.
So once you understand what those things are and how they work, then it's easy to tweak them. So teaching people how to tweak. He says, but I'm like, give me a problem, any kind of problem, and then I'll show you how to tweak that. And then I would give we did like a game show type thing. So there was so many amazing things that we did that was just kind of there. Another thing too, one of the people talked about was the hero's journey.
Right.
And again, I probably know that story better than anybody. And I went into Joseph Campbell's stuff, and I was talking to ChatGPT, right, like it's human, whatever. But I was like, hey, is it possible? Can I start training on this? Can I start teaching people this stuff and really expand it out so people can really understand what this shit means and where they are in this so-called journey? And it said, actually, yes, you can, very much so, because it's not something that's isolated for just him. He'll tell you that he took that story that already exists and just told you what it was. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And the fact that I just so happened to learn it and love to teach from it, it was kind of the skeleton that I like to use to help people kind of go from point A to point B.
Okay.
So, but yeah, so that's what I did though, man.
Well, and I'm jumping a little bit back in the conversation, but I want to kind of touch base on it. I'm a book nerd, not to the level where Fearless reads all the time. But I have my book, I have my library, my library of books over there. One of my favorite authors is Kurt Vonnegut.
I got several of his books. I've read a lot of them. He uses the N-word gratuitously.
Yeah,
Like, good God.
it depends on what you're reading. I think one of the things I like, one of the reasons it depends on because sometimes I think I know what book you're talking about.
No,
A
he
couple of
uses it
books.
quite often. Because I've read like 4 of his books.
Okay. One of the things I align with regarding it is for me when I read it, I kind of liken him to Bill Withers, where he's able to take complex ideas and say them in simple ways.
Mhm.
And so I always that's always been kind of my thing with Vonnegut. And so um what is it? He said, be careful who you pretend we are who we pretend to be, so be careful who you pretend to be.
Mm,
And
mm,
one of the things that you mentioned is where people will take something that they have hung up in their life, um, a place and a part in their life where they're hung up on it, um, and they end up making that their identity, right? Like something they're
mhm.
struggling with, they ends up becoming their identity. So the problem never gets solved because they've integrated that piece of that piece of that struggle that they're struggling with. They've integrated that into their identity, and that became who they really are. And they have a hard time disassociating the two things. Um, I see it in like online, and it's kind of a joke, but you see it online. When we talk about the guys, the people that especially the guy. It's always interesting the phenomenon online where dudes will sit there and come up. They'll see a picture of a happy couple, and they'll come up with this entire scenario where she's cheating on him and she's gonna break his heart and everything. And it's like, so you saw a picture of this couple, and in your mind you created a hypothetical situation where you're the loser that gets cheated on. What does that
You
say
know,
about you?
okay, so here's the thing. Here's the
Yeah.
thing. Here's the thing. Nikolai Tesla said, if we studied more of the non-physical world
Hmm.
than we do the physical world, he said that we would move technology and we would move life decades ahead
Hmm.
of where we would have been if we just studied. He said it would push us further than what it has the last 20, 30, 40 years of studying the physical. And
Hmm.
the reason why I say that is I'll say this. That's happened to me several times, and then it actually ended up being true. Where I just got this feeling. Like I saw something and automatically just got this intense physical feeling something's not right. And again, it had nothing to do with me, relationship or whatever. It's just something I saw. I was like, oh, dude, what? And that's what was happening. That's happened multiple times on multiple different things. Not even just relationships,
Hmm.
work stuff, um, like all kinds of different stuff, bro. So there is something outside of the what is it, ethereal world
Yeah.
that I think that each of us taps into. That I think that we're already tapped into it. Or whatever. It's just the physical part of us always thinks that maybe we're going a little crazy, but sometimes you're not.
Well, and the thing, I guess maybe I could rephrase it a little bit. What I'm saying is these guys will sit there and look at it and then put themselves into like, yeah, man, I'm not gonna have a girl, I'm not gonna get this because they fantasy like they'll have this fantasy world about them having a relationship, and then part of the fantasy is she's cheating on 'em. Like to me, if I'm thinking about something, like if I'm daydreaming about something, I'm trying to daydream about myself winning. I'm trying to visualize myself winning, right?
Right.
I'm not trying, and I've learned that along the way. When I've dealt with depression, I've dealt with the imposter syndrome with ADHD, and so I'm really kind of in tune with like how my brain works. When I sit down and daydream about where I want to be, I don't daydream about myself being the loser in the situation. And so what I'm saying is, these dudes will get online, see a couple, and then project themselves into the relationship, and then say it all, but she's cheating on him and blah blah blah. Like, why would you daydream about yourself being the loser that gets cheated on? because you're setting yourself up. You're programming yourself to experience that. I believe in that. I honestly do believe in that, that we could program ourselves to experience the things that we come into contact with, right? And so if every single time you see somebody enjoying happiness or wealth or success or whatever, and you've put yourself in that, you put yourself in that role, and then the first thing you think is, how can things go terribly? How can this person cheat on me? How, you know, what kind of evil is this person doing and all this? Like if you put it, like if you fantasize yourself in that role, like I feel like that's something that's happened where people end up almost integrating that mentality into a core of who they are, and then wonder why things don't work out for them.
So I hear you in that. I do the same thing with my son. Quite often he had a little girlfriend, but the one thing that I do is to again prepare people, and that perspective comes
Yeah.
in, right? And I told him, I said, okay, let me ask you. I said, you love her? He said, Dad, I'm so in love with her. I said, great. Can I tell you something? He said, yeah. I said, honey, if you love this one, you'll love the next one. So I'm just telling you now, son. I'm not telling you not to love people because you're going to. You're just an emotional kid like that. But I'm telling you now, it's gonna come and go. And the likelihood of y'all being together for long periods of time is probably not going to happen. So as long as you remember to remind her, no matter what, let's always be friends. She's
Well,
like, all right, we can do that. And that's what happened.
and see
So,
that, to me, that's different. Like you're kind of preparing him for the eventuality of life. What I'm
mhm,
saying is where you imagine yourself in a situation, and then you imagine yourself being the loser of that situation,
mhm,
where you're imagining it, like you're hypothetically creating situations where you're going to lose.
mhm.
And I think that's a powerful drive for a lot of people. I think that's an online culture thing. A lot of people have disassociated with life so much that they're left to their fantasies and left to their daydreams, and even in their daydreams, they're not winning. And then when you can't visualize any victory on any front, when you can't visualize victory on any front, then you have a hard time finding victories. You have a hard time finding wins because you're always self-sabotaging. Even when you're up, you're down.
Here's the thing. I agree with that. I also think though too, again from what I've seen the last 100 nights or
Mhm.
whatever is also that. Well, okay, so I like what you said about that. We live in such a culture that literally looks for the negative instead of
Mhm.
the positive. So I get that. I get that. I get that.
Mhm.
Um, as a philosopher, that's what we do too. Is that we have to role play losing that situation as well. I don't just look at it from the standpoint of winning. I
Right.
also have to look at it from the standpoint of not winning too. But this is the one thing that I've noticed more so, and what got me through all 100 shows. This is the biggest thing that I took from it. When you focus on doing, when you have a message, and you focus on putting that message out, it doesn't matter whether you win, lose, or fail. It doesn't matter because the objective is to put the message out, regardless of who gets it, regardless of where it goes, regardless if it ends up on dead ears, regardless if it ends up in the fucking ether or whatever. Did you do what you said you were going to do? Plain and simple, yes or no. And for me, that's what it is. And I think that I agree with you that we spend so much time thinking about people shitting all over our stuff as opposed to just putting the fucking work out.
Yeah.
Like plain and simple, what did you tell me? Hit the button, bro. Just go live. Hit the button. Hit the button. Hit the button. Didn't you say that?
Yeah.
And that's what I did. You didn't tell me to do 100 fucking days. I said I was going to do 100 days because
Right.
I needed to get that shit out of me. That fear of 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 just not following through with what I said I was going to do had to go. That fear of like if I have an idea, I just want to get on and just jump with it.
Right.
That shit's mine. Like we you know what I'm saying? Like, bro, do you understand how much time our thing is gonna have now for StreamYard?
Yeah.
Because like we're at like almost 40 hours again.
Right.
And 90% of that's because of me. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I'm just saying, so like I said, like doing a whole hour and a half of stuff every single night, like bro, like that's that's some deep shit. But again, like I said though, bro, I think that the biggest problem is that on we're so focused on being judged by other people that you don't just fucking start. So then we think so that's where we stay.
Yeah.
Instead of just doing the fucking work, that's where we stay. Like a person once told me, where do you find clients? They're online. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's where they are. They're on fucking line.
Well, and no matter what, here the point is, no matter what you do, no matter when you turn on the camera, no matter how polished you are, no matter how good your content is, there's always going to be some person out there that wants to drop some negative comment on your thing. It's going to
Always.
happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen eventually. And fearing that negative comment, and wanting to avoid it also means forestalling the thing that could probably change your life or the creative outlet that you've been looking for. And I think that's what I think maybe that's the crux of what I'm saying is people get so invested in what the negative outcome, they start visualizing themselves in the negative outcome as opposed to visualizing how they're going to navigate the negative outcome, if that makes sense. Like, and for those that are out there considering streaming and you're sitting there playing around with the idea, hit the record button. I'm using a webcam. You know what I'm saying? Right now. Hit the record button. If somebody's going to if somebody has something negative to say, they're going to say it anyway. Because that's what their life is. They log on.
Yeah.
They log on to try to ruin somebody else's day or to darken somebody else's day. I even see it with fake constructive feedback where you have this video that has, 100,000 views and somebody's like, you need to work on your lighting. I was like, no, what? And it's just somebody nagging you. The concept is what they call nagging, where they take jabs at you to try to bring your ego down a little bit. It's a relationship thing that people do. People do it in relationships all the time, where they just poke and jab at you and nag you, and somehow that draws them closer to you. I forgot what the mechanism is, but that's kind of what it is. And so a lot of times people just exist to be online to tell you what you ain't doing right or how you could do this better. And it's not really, it's kind of somatic complaining. It's not really feedback that will improve you. It's just so that they can have one up on you. If that makes sense. I've even seen it. Here's one. Okay. So I posted, about a year ago, I'm in a lifting group, right? And so we normally post our personal our PRs and our sets for the day. And so I accidentally posted my sets for the day on my main page, right? And somebody's like, "Oh, I need to see footage of that. I don't believe that." Blah 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 blah. Because my deadlift was like, it was like 450 or something, which I just did a couple of days ago. It's nothing for me, but they didn't believe that I could do it. And so I'm like, well, here's a video of me doing this 2 years ago. I don't record myself in the gym. That's weird to me. You know what I'm saying? Here's a video of me doing it 2 years ago. Oh, wow. Yeah. But the comment was unnecessary in the first place. It was just a little jab. Like I'm sitting there lying about it. And so there are people out there that exist like that. And so if that's the thing that's keeping you from jumping on like Fearless or jumping on like we are, it's going to come. You just got to navigate it. The thing that pisses them off is when you say, "Oh, thanks for watching," and you move on. You don't engage with it. You just say, "Thanks for watching," and you keep pushing.
I remember what's my man's name? Andre 3000 said, "It's so sad that we try to be stars just to dodge comments."
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, seriously. And, it's just so crazy because everybody, like, so many people are always wondering why he doesn't put out, like, the type of music and this and the other and whatever. But, again, if you read or watch or listen to any of his interviews, and even from back in the day when Outkast damn near first came out in the early 2000s, Andre said himself on multiple occasions of how did he say that? He said, "I wish I could make music and nobody knew who I was."
Yeah.
So again, and then he had mentioned on several occasions that, like, I remember when I used to really want to rap, like, hey, just to get out of this place, just to go to a house, and then I'm in the house, and I wish I was still in the apartment type stuff. You know what I'm saying? So I think that again, I think that when you find your identity, when you find who you are, sometimes, man, it may be what's the word I'm looking for? It may be contrary
Yeah.
to where you think that you want to be. And it's sadly enough, man, when you finally figure who you are out, it may be in a really shitty situation when you figure that out.
Right.
And you might let people down with that, you know what I'm saying? Like, seriously, I mean, which again, it's so crazy because if you look again, I'm not dissing, I love Outkast in general.
Yeah.
Him and Big Boy, like, I love the shit out of them. But again, Andre is like the Loch Ness monster.
Yeah.
You know, so when you see him, you go grab or listen to anything he on because he comes out so far and frequent.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He's not you don't have access to that dude like that. Big Boy, you could probably hit him up and get him on any track.
Mm-hmm.
But Andre, though, like, there has to be something.
Well, it's kind of the different, like, it's the different philosophies of, and we talked about it with Prince and stuff like that. One of the things I see with Andre is he is an artist, like,
yes.
And some artists are like, I just want to capture the raw expression of what I'm saying, and I don't really care if it's perfect. And other people are like, I don't want to put out anything less than perfection. And I think he drifts more towards that other end of it. And it doesn't, other MCs that are more prolific, that put out more stuff, that doesn't mean that they're not putting the same level of quality into it. Specifically like Black Thought and Q-Tip, they had so much materials in their archive that when they lost their stuff in the fire, they lost a lot of their archives and stuff in fires. That's how much stuff that they had archived, right? It's just a different way of perceiving one's art and one's creation. And for Andre, I think even reading the interviews, he's very in line with, it has to be just perfect. It has to be just right. Otherwise, I'm not going to be happy with it. And I think that's kind of a gift and a curse, because on one hand, his version of good enough or okay or marginal is a lot of people's ceilings. Like, that's so far above some people's heads, some people's creative output, that they could never hope to attain that. But in his mind, it's not him. And so I could see where it goes on both ends of it. And it's not diminishing other people that put out stuff more frequently. And I think a lot of times people misunderstand. Back in the days, Andre he puts out stuff infrequently. Like, you rarely hear him anymore, especially from a rhyming standpoint. It's mostly like he's kind of absent on that scene. But before the internet kind of took over music and streaming took over, it might be 2 or 3 years between albums for an artist. Like, that was just kind of the expected runway and cycle of it. When I worked in the radio station, the expected shelf life of a single was anywhere from 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
And now it's shortened to almost like 3 months. Like, you have a 3-month window, and then you got to move on and come out with the next thing. And so I think part of that plays into it. But the other side is he also has, it's not perfectionism, but it's close. You know what I'm saying? Where it's got to be just so. It's got to be just right. The art has to be just what it has to be his complete vision, or it doesn't see the light of day.
Right, yeah. Big Boy was talking about, I think it was on MTV Cribs, how Andre had been working on this artist. Because again, he's an amazing artist too, actual artist. And he had been working on that thing for, like, I think either it was a year or two at that point. But Andre was like, yeah, but it got to be perfect when I give it to him.
Mm-hmm.
It had to be perfect. And so again, I think that when you look at what's going on, which is, it almost feels like I'm just throwing it out there, man. It almost feels like Andre is suffering from imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and again, I hate to throw that title on everybody, but again, that's the common signs of that. Of like, everybody else knows how amazing you are. And he's like, man, I'm 50-some years old. I had to have a colonoscopy and this, that, and the other. Like, who wants to hear about that? Like, bro, you don't have to rap about that. But you can tell us about your life. You can tell us about your thoughts. We would love to know, what you think about in general. You are playing a flute and shit.
I think what it is he's looking at the younger audience and saying, how do I relate to them? And a lot of the older audience is like, dude, just talk to us. We don't care.
Talk to us.
The older people, the younger folks will discover it 5-10 years from now and be blown away like they do with Kendrick's. Like they do with Kendrick's catalog, or they do with Rakim's catalog.
Or Outkast's catalog now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's like, no, like talk to us. Like, we want to know what you're thinking. We want to know what you're on. That's why E40 is still rapping. That's why one of my favorite rappers, Brother Lynch Hung, who does not rap about anything except for killing, cutting people's heads off, and all kind of other shit. But I still listen to him. But people are amazed. Like, I've been listening to that dude for 30 years. 30 years. And guess what? He is the only person who does not have to have a commercial about his CD, and I'm going to go get it. I need to go get that.
I know Joe Budden had a song on one of his mixtapes. It's called Black Cloud, where he's literally, that's the first part of what he's talking about. It was like, he said, now I'm a different person with nothing to overcome and I miss the burden.
Yeah.
Like, and so his competitor is him, and it's an entire song talking about how he's kind of made it, but he's actively like, and a lot of it is tied to mental illness, because he's been pretty open about dealing with mental illness and stuff like that. But he's like, I'm living in a house so peaceful that I'm trying to disrupt it.
Yeah.
And so what he's saying is he's kind of made it to where he's wanted to be in his career, but he's trying to almost create tension and create chaos so that he has to work at something again. And I feel like Andre, I do think you might be right. I think it is imposter syndrome, because a lot of times when the competition is the person in the mirror, I've dealt with that. Like, okay, so Pete, by the time I was 36 years old, I had accomplished everything I had to do in my dream career. I accomplished everything I wanted to do in my dream career by the time I was 36 years old. I had set my goal and said, I want to manage and run my own programs, and I did it twice.
Right.
And the last time was at a higher level than the first time. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, Brian, you've made it to where you want to be. And you're sitting in the chair that you want to sit in. And it was the emptiest feeling I've ever felt in my life. So that's a real thing. And I'm not saying I was like Andre 3000 level, but for me, that was my accomplishment. I set my goal and I met my goal. And now I'm feeling empty because there's nothing else to pursue at this point. I've capped out. I've reached the top of where I can go with this thing, as far as I want to go with this thing. And so when I look at Andre, he's comparing his old body of work with the stuff that's in his mind now. And I promise you, the stuff that's in his mind now is probably mind-blowing. It's probably some of the most compelling work.
Prolific shit, yes.
But in his mind, it doesn't stack up to what he's done before. And so he's basically, competing with himself, and that's the one person that you're never going to beat. Is competing with yourself. You're only going to be able to match yourself. You're never going to be able to beat yourself. You know, you could say, yeah, this is better than the stuff I've done before, but then that ends up becoming your new ceiling, and that becomes the thing that you're working towards outpacing. And I think I have the problem where if it's not amazing, or if I don't and this is one thing I've done with services, if I don't massively overachieve or over deliver, I feel like the thing is a failure.
Yeah.
If I don't massively, I was doing a fractional CMO work, and basically that's I'll be your personal market. I'll be your outsourced marketing department for your entire agency.
Okay.
And
God damn.
Yeah, and it was
God damn.
Huh?
Ugh,
Yeah.
Ugh.
And I was enjoying it. It was me and my wife, and we were basically, I was the fractional CMO. She was helping me out with a lot of the creative side of it, creating stuff. And I had this grand vision of where I was going to take this whole thing for that agency. And we got into the work of it, and we realized, okay, they have a lot of other needs. And then on top of the other needs, we're getting tasks dumped on top of us. And so what happened was I wasn't able to reach that vision that I had for their entire marketing system, where we have this entire online platform is bringing in leads that are able to position themselves as thought leaders in the space when it comes to Black mental health. Like, that was my vision.
Mm-hmm.
But the groundwork required to do that was very, very high, because I was dealing with, well, I don't want to be on camera. And nobody wanted to be on camera, but they wanted it, but nobody wanted to be on camera. And there was a lot of other things. So we got mired down in so many tasks. And when it finally came to the end, the conclusion of services, I'm like, damn, this felt like a failure. But we had done so much. None of the stuff was a failure. It just, I didn't reach where I wanted to get with it. And so in my mind, if I don't reach my goal, then the thing is a failure. And that messed with me for 2.5 years.
Okay.
I beat myself up for that for 2.5 years. And it took me talking to other people in the industry or whatnot and saying, yeah, this is just kind of the way it goes as a marketer. Like, yeah, you have, because the marketing is your art. That is your art. That's your expression. The ads and the way that you put the marketing system you put in place, that is your expression. That's your art. Right. And when you're not able to see the potential of the art that you've created, or you don't feel like it lives up to the potential that you had in mind for it, then it feels personal and it hurts. And so that messed with me for a couple of years. It messed with my confidence. I get it. I understand where he was like, I'm never going to be able to match, what was it? Equipment in his mind. Like, I'm not going to be able to match Equipment and or the Love Below, or, you know what I'm saying? And so why try? In my mind, dude, you have so much life experience and perspective that you could put it into words. Like right now with Little Brother, when they're going on they're doing their last hurrah right now. Listening to Little Brother, when they dropped their full length a couple of years ago, it almost had me in tears, because they're talking about they're my age. They're talking about stuff 40-year-old men go through, 40-year-old Black men experience. They're talking about that life where the club ain't fun no more. I'd rather sit at home watching Sports Center. I'd rather sit at home, I don't want to be out. I don't want to be out in the scene. Bring me 6 wings, lemon pepper, all flats.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, that part. Yes, that's what I be on. All flats. Grab me some of that. Kick back, read a book.
Yeah,
listen
I'm
to some
drunk.
lo-fi sleep music,
Yeah.
and just chill, just vibe out, bro.
And
that's what I'm on.
And so their entire album was talking about being dads, getting older, when the royalty slowed down, having to drive Uber, like stuff like that. That's real. And those are real things that middle-aged Black men and Black women experience. And I'm like, this album spoke to me in a way. And I'm like, Andre, you have that in you. Yeah. Let's hear what that looks like at 50 years old. I want to hear it. I don't want to hear young in the club Andre. I don't care about that. I never wanted to hear in the club Andre. I want to hear Andre that's talking about real things.
Yeah. No, so here's the thing. There was one thing that you had talked about before, and I wanted to kind of touch on it. Earl Nightingale, a speaker and author, said that success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal.
Hmm.
And basically, what he meant by that is that anything that you actually want to go out and accomplish, and you accomplish it, you are successful.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to be a teacher and you became a teacher, then that's it. If you wanted to be a leader in whatever in working in different houses, this and the other, and that's what you end up doing, then you're successful. So your success is not congruent or contingent on somebody else's success. You know what I mean? Because everybody
Yeah.
views success totally different. Another thing that you said about Joe Budden, Nori said the same exact thing years ago. If you can find that interview, he said his accountant paid off all of his bills for 2 years. He did not have another bill for 2 years. He said that was the most miserable time in my life. We are so accustomed, we are so attached, we are so inept in struggling
Hmm.
that even if you took it away from us, we'd figure out a way to go get it back. Isn't that crazy?
That's a crazy place to be.
That's how sick we are
Yeah.
as people, that we consistently keep thinking. And I don't know. I mean, maybe when some people like, you know what, I just want peace. I just want to be at peace.
Yeah.
And that's one thing. It's one thing to say I want to be at peace, and it's something totally different to make your life peaceful. I've made my life peaceful because that I it's not the thing that I want. Oh, I want peace. No, I make peace and quiet. I create it. I demand that. So I do that. And even if it's just a couple minutes to sit in my car by myself, even if it's to go for a little walk by myself, even if it's to go to a grocery store, just to go chill by myself, I find those things by myself. Another thing, real talk, and it would be the last thing I talk about Andre.
Uh,
But one of the things that Big Boy talked about during the interview was that he was like, dude, Andre would always ask me, hey, man. No, actually, Andre was saying, I would have to ask Big Boy if this verse is good or not, because I don't know if it is or not. And Big Boy was like, what, are you serious? You mean you better put that shit out? Yes, that's good.
yeah.
So he would have to ask his rap partner, like, hey, man, is this cool? This and the other. And again, though, bro, when you get to that point where you become kind of like a hermit in your own mind. And that's kind of what's happened with Andre. I mean, dude, bro, ATL is what I think. No. Southern Cadillac,
Southern
Southern
Playalistic Cadillac.
Cadillac
Yeah.
Music was their first album.
Yeah.
First album. Or whatever. And I mean, that, even that was hard as shit. I had that album.
Yeah.
They, to me, introduced Goody Mob, which I think Goody Mob was probably already out, but whatever. Anyway, so they're all part of that whole Dungeon Family type thing or whatever, which presents your boy like Big Gip and CeeLo and all of them or whatever. But Dre, on the other hand, like, I'm not gonna say it was something different about him, but his flow was a little different because Big Boy was always talking about weed and selling this and doing that. Homeboy's verses have to do with life,
Yeah.
in general. You know what I'm saying? Like in general. And then if you ask a person about Me and You, you probably couldn't tell me any other verse in that song. But when you say went to the mall the other day, heard a call from the other way, I don't care who you are, you'll know how to finish the rest of Alpha of that rap. You know what I'm saying? Because he took a situation and turned it into a verse that people forever remember because it was so tight. I don't remember Big Boy's fucking verse on. I remember because I've heard it so many times.
Yeah.
But nobody else really remembers it. But when you hear Andre's, You know what I'm saying? I was at the mall the other day, got called from the other way, and then you can just kind of keep going. It's like, what? Yeah, that verse was so crazy. It was like, it's like you had to keep rewinding it. Like, what did he just say? And it was so. I don't know. I've never been a rapper. Never. I think I wanted to be when I was a kid or whatever. But I've always had this thing with perfectionism.
Yeah.
So if it wasn't perfect, I wasn't doing it. But then when I started doing like public speaking and stuff like that, I'm like, oh, dude, this is great because I can just freestyle this. As long as I have the idea of what I'm talking about, you know what I'm saying, and the theme of what I'm talking about and the points of what I'm talking about, I could do this shit for hours. And that's another thing that I learned, that I could talk for an hour and a half every goddamn night for an hour for 100 goddamn days.
So I can throw it out there because we actually, me and my business partner actually used to rhyme. We were DJs in college radio. We actually rhymed and stuff. I've done my first and last big stage battle was, I'm about to date myself, was at the Ranch Bowl when they had the Fresh Fest. This was years and years ago. And I got up there and I won my round with strep throat, and I was coughing up blood by the end of it. My voice was jacked. And so, but yeah, that I've did that, and we had demo tapes and all the other stuff. We kind of were in that, but for me, it was that perfectionism trap, because I'm like, I got so much I want to say, and I need to make sure it's on beat. I need to make sure it rhymes and stuff like that. You know, we had gone through all the way to almost signing a publishing deal, and we had a lawyer look at the publishing deal and said, "You're going to be tied to this forever. Don't do this." And that was kind of the end of it.
Forever.
Yeah. And so we had gotten to the point where we were going to sign publishing and do publishing for our stuff, get all the BMI and ASCAP and all that stuff. But I had done that, and I had lived in that world, and a lot of it is, you know, you want to be better than the person next to you. But I think one thing is, when you operate at such a high level, when your level is so much higher, when your floor is higher than most people's ceilings, it gets really hard to see your greatness. Because I think if Andre 3000 actually realized, even back then, how amazing what he was saying was, it wouldn't be the same bars. He's competing against himself. Right. And so he's trying to outdo himself. And so, you know, but I do think a lot of people end up fixating on that. I want it all to be like this perfect. I want the whole thing to be this perfect world. And they never get past that. It ends up becoming their crutch. Okay. Well, if I do it, I want it to be right. As opposed to, if I do it, I want it to come out right now. Because that's what I had to shift to. I had to shift from, if I do it, I want it to be right, to versus, I just want it done right now.
Right now, yeah. Yeah. I mean, and again, and some people say, well, dude, like it's good to plan. Yes, I will say that. It is good to plan, to at least have I would say have an outline of what you like to do. Yeah. But bro, stop fucking talking. Just go do it. Yeah. And again, if you need coaching, if you need assistance, if you need this, that, and the other, have somebody else go with you. Shit, that's what I did. If you're fucking scared, call. You know, I would tell my people all the time, call me. This is what I do. Mm-hmm. Like, I can get you through it enough that you can keep me in your ear. You know, right. Let's get you going. And eventually you won't need me no more. And from a coach, from a life coach, from a philosopher standpoint, I don't want you to need me. You know what I'm saying? Like, seriously, like, I don't mind working with you damn near every other day or whatever, but eventually I need to start seeing that you can get this on your own. Because I think that sometimes, bro, that's really all we need is somebody who has our fucking back. Hey, man, can I talk to you? Of course, let's go. What's up? Talk to me. And you go from there until you start building your own thing up for yourself. And then once you got that going, you can just go. When I started doing this, I had my friend in my ear because I was nervous. I was scared as fuck. I didn't know what I was doing. Like a kid in a basement. Hey, come with me. I'd have to have her in my ear because I was so nervous.
And see, and that's why different approaches mean, because for me, that would make it like having somebody in my ear be worse. I'd rather just go out and tank it. But everybody has approaches that make them feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Find what makes you comfortable and then go out and do the damn thing. Because this is kind of where we're at with it right now. The function of the Trial and Error podcast serves two things. One, this is when I said Fearless, because we were trying to figure out how to launch, how to get started, how to get him started and everything. I said, why don't we just do something together to get you out there, and let's get the ball rolling. Let's do something together. And so initially started out with things that we would just kind of video chat and then record it and try to clip it down. And Fearless like, I'm not with the editing. I don't like watching old. I don't like reviewing footage of myself. I just can't do it. And so then we're like, why don't we just live stream it? And that's where this came from. And so,
I took that shit and ran with it.
And took it and ran with it. And so
I didn't jog. I ran with it.
And so now we have all these episodes of Trial and Error podcast. And now I'm actually physically going through and reclipping these so that we can roll them out and distribute them on social media the right way, as opposed to, in longer form clips and whatnot. And so that's kind of where we are. The reason why we're doing this, and it's not, one, it's because we just like to talk and we like to get our thoughts out there and share what we know with the world. Other side is, this is a digital resume for us in terms of you're getting a chance to see how we think in action, how our brains move in real time.
And not just that, man, but showing up consistently.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about showing up, because anybody can show up, but are you showing up consistently?
Yeah.
There's a difference. Consistently. Which again, I'm just saying that a lot of times we don't.
Yeah. So we're showing the consistency. You're seeing how we think about things and how we analyze things in real time. Because when you hire me to help out with your marketing and teach you the basics of live streaming and podcasting and broadcasting, getting yourself out there, you're seeing how my mind works in real time and how I think about things and the rants and tangents I can go on. And you're acclimating yourself to my personal style. So if you want to work with me, that's a bridge of like, okay, I know how Brian moves. I know how he thinks. And so this is not a jarring experience. Fearless, you're seeing how Fearless thinks. You're seeing how Fearless puts things. You're seeing how Fearless ties things. Fearless can be brash and direct about stuff. And so you're acclimating yourself to how he is, so that when you make that decision, this is the guy I need for my life coach, you're not shocked by anything. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's just, what you're getting. And so what we're saying is this, and I've mentioned this on other live streams or whatnot, the content can be your resume. Even if you're not a business owner, even if you're a professional just trying to advance in your career, just getting online and sharing what you know and talking about what you know and putting it on a LinkedIn, you're putting yourself in front of the people that are going to hire you or the people that are going to promote you. They're getting a chance to see you undistilled and how your brain actually works in real time. I have a client that's working for right now. And the only barrier is your self-doubt.
That's it.
Here's the thing. You're never going to not have your self-doubt. It's always going to be there. It's going to be your constant passenger. Are you going to let the passenger dictate the entire journey? I don't let my kids tell me what direction I'm heading. If I know what direction I'm supposed to be, I don't let them give me directions. If they're riding along, sit down and ride. Are you going to let that your passenger of your self-doubt dictate your entire journey? If you are, then you're going to have a very difficult time. But if you're ready to move on from letting your self-doubt dictate your journey, then you probably need to book some time with either me or Fearless, depending on what your outcomes are. That's all I'm saying. That's our ad right there. That's the call to action. You know how to find us.
I'm just saying.
So
no, that's what that is. Hold on one second. I wanted to again, so another thing that I wrote up was that content builds brands and discipline builds legacy. Anyway, and this is what you taught me. Anybody can go viral, but only few go consistent.
Yeah.
Only few people are willing to do whatever it takes every single day to make it work.
You can go viral. You can go viral falling down the stairs. Like somebody could record you falling down the stairs, and that could go. That's your viral clip.
Right. 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 I mean, and again though, and you taught me that. You taught me the importance of understanding between, like, what am I building, and who am I building it for? Because we were talking about why is it that some people get all these views and this and the other. And you say, well, dude, you're not entertaining people, you're educating them.
Right.
So your niches, your things, the people who come mess with you are not going to be the same people who will go and watch a Mr. Beast video. By no means. Right. I'm not saying that they're not there or whatever, because you're going to get a little bit on every walk of life there. But the people who want to fuck with you directly, no, sir. That's
right.
not where you're going to find them. Those people are going to be over there.
Right.
Or whatever, right? Another thing that I learned is that creating something new forces me to get clearer than coaching weekly. And what I mean by that is, if what we talked about before, if I'm just coaching you every single week, I'm gathering up experience, I'm gathering up leverage, I'm gathering up know-how every single week. But when you do it daily, it forces you. It forced me to clarify what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. It forced me to attach this thing over here to something all the way out there. And here's another thing too. Another lesson that it gave me too is that where you get tired at, it's going to differ. When you're doing 100 episodes or whatever, you're kind of creating them on a whim type stuff, the burnout is real. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I was burnt out, I think, on the 15th or 16th one.
Wow. Yeah, that's early in the game, but yeah.
That's early in the game. I mean, because I hadn't done it before all that. You know what I'm saying? I hadn't done nothing. So again, that's almost like going to the gym. Like, you ain't been there in years, and all of a sudden now you're gonna jump back in there. You're gonna get your ass handed to you.
Right.
So for the first couple of weeks, I'm like, God damn, okay. And again, I'm trying to run out of material, this and the other. I'm like, no. So I had to restructure. Once I restructure, I'm cool. And then it got to like, I think I was at somewhere in 50 or 70, somewhere up around there.
Right.
And then it happened a lot more. And then during my 80th episode, from 80 to 89, I was like, all right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the 9 steps of the hero's journey, and I'm going to break them down for every day. So the first one is the ordinary world. The second one is the call to action. The third one is the refusal. Fourth one is your mentor. So I took every single day and I built out a whole entire training for an hour and a half for every single one of those things. Q&A, coaching, training, right?
Right.
And then for the 90th one, I'm like, okay, I have to break a couple things out. So again, bro, I ain't gonna lie to you. It's almost like when you have to shit and you right next to a toilet, you might like, bro, if you don't calm down, you gonna shit on yourself because of the excitement that you're almost there. You're almost done.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt. You know what I'm saying? Like, and now I'm at 101. And again, now we're going to switch it up to books, because I love books, and that's something I will never get tired of. You see what I'm saying? So I'm really excited for that part or whatever. But here's another cool thing about that too. I had to teach this stuff, not just talk, and that also sharpens up your framework a lot faster too. Especially when there's participation and people disagree with some of the shit you say. One of the things that I would tell people all the time, please disagree with me. I hope that you disagree with me, because although this is my perspective, I also want to sharpen it better too. I want to get better at what I'm doing, and I'm not gonna get better if I'm not gonna get better if you guys don't question me.
Right.
If you guys aren't like participating in the conversation. Another thing that you taught me was that is that you don't need thousands of people or hundreds of people to show up. You only need the people that show up to show up, and the ones that show up, give them the best episodes you possibly can.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Because it's not about the volume. It's not about the quantity of the people that show up. Because you can have 1,000 people show up and nobody give a fuck,
Hmm.
and you can have 5 people that show up every single night to support you, to fuck with you, to learn from you. That is gonna touch you in ways that 2-3 thousand that show up for you. And here's the thing, it could be a different thousand. Nothing's ever consistent with it. But what my people did when they showed up every night was amazing. Another thing I could say is that the person that started this thing, the person that started Axe Fearless, is not the Axe Fearless that I am right now. The version of me who started this challenge could not be the same one that finished it. You know what I'm saying? That means I had to grow through
Right.
all 100 episodes. I had to grow. And with that, my confidence flew through the roof. I could I could teach and train anybody on, as long as it's my stuff or something that's likened to my stuff. I
Mhm.
could teach and train this shit to anybody. And anybody. You know what I'm saying? And again, it was a lot harder. Um, Again, keeping that momentum from day one to day 92 and day 50, but I still showed up anyway, despite, you know what I'm saying, all the other shit though. So, I mean,
Well,
so yeah, that's just a few things that I wanted to throw in there.
and I think one of the lessons is, if you want to, you may not be able to 100% defeat your imposter syndrome, but
No,
you can combat it by showing up consistently and just taking it as it is. So whether you show up and there's 5 people or show up and there's 500 people, it don't matter as long as you are consistent with yourself and habituate what you're doing. Once it becomes a habit, there's not as much room for doubt. It becomes more a little bit automatic. Just like when I turn on the camera and hit live, I'm already, welcome back to the show. It's Brian with the blah blah blah. On this episode, we're gonna do blah blah blah. Um, you know, introduce yourself, do introductions. All right, hit the intro. That came through repetition. When I first started, it was just me talking straight to camera.
right.
Um, and I realized that I had to kind of frame things in a specific way for me, for my mind to connect with it.
Yeah,
And the only way that I can defeat the imposter syndrome of, man, the viewer count's fluctuating, it's going up and down, blah blah blah, is one, realizing that the viewer count up here doesn't reflect really anything, because StreamYard doesn't get a lot of these sources cleanly, and so it's only more of an approximation. And two, not worrying about what's on that viewer count. We're here and we're going to have this conversation, and the people
mhm.
that matter, the people that are going to connect with it, are going to see it.
Yeah,
And then when I start recutting these into actual feature length episodes, we're going to get even more people coming back and seeing how we think. But the reality of it is, the thing that silences the doubt is the fact that I'm just used to doing this.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean, it's just showing up. Like I was so scared, so nervous, and I still get a little nervous right before I hit that button. But once I hit that button, it's on. Like all that, it's like it dissipates, it goes away. Just
Yeah.
like Tyson used to say, man, when I was in that room, what room? The room before I came out
Yeah.
or whatever. Like he said, I was nervous, I was scared. He said the closer I got to the ring, it kind of went away a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. As soon as I got into the ring and I looked in their eyes and they turned away for just a blink of a second, I'm like, man, that shit, this is over.
It's
I'm gonna
showtime.
beat the shit out of you. Like, right. And I mean, I don't necessarily mean I'm gonna beat the hell out of people, but I'm gonna have some fun with this. I hope that you do too.
Yeah. In my old life, and I still have some pretty significant social anxiety, depending on the situation. I am not the most extroverted person in the world, but when I was working in group homes, when it was crisis time, that was when it was time for me to be on, and I could navigate that without thinking.
Mm,
This kid's trying to lay down in the middle of Dodge Street. All right, Brian, well, let's go figure out how to get him out of the middle of Dodge Street before he gets hit by a car.
yeah.
Um, this kid's tearing up the living room. All right, let's go diffuse this situation. And even though in my normal life I didn't go out and normally seek that level of interaction, when it was time to be on, it was time to be on because it's what I knew and what I was comfortable with. And a
Mhm.
lot of times it's about getting yourself comfortable with the uncomfortable part, getting yourself uncomfortable with living in the uncomfortability of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think a lot of times people forget that. Like, you have to go through that level of discomfort. Discomfort's how you grow. If everything you stepped into was always comfortable, then you're not expanding your horizons. You're not growing. You're where you are. And if your goal isn't to grow or to expand any further, that's fine. But dwelling in that level of uncomfort, and to me, that's where, if I'm uncomfortable in this situation, that means I'm not acclimated. That means I haven't learned the skills to thrive in this environment. And so I need to learn the skills to thrive in this environment. And that's going to make me better at what I'm doing.
Mm. Okay.
So
No, I love that.
so
I love that.
so the takeaway for today is, go ahead, Fearless.
I was going to say the last thing too is that you also have to let certain parts of, again, like we talked about before, we have to let certain parts of us die off in order to move or progress forward.
Right.
And that means that your ego, laziness, perfectionism, and doubt. I buried all my shit on camera, and I told everybody, "Hey, I'm nervous. I'm scared." Well, my son, when he got his black belt, he had to give a public speech in front of all these people. I said, "Son, as soon as you get up there and they mic you up, I said, I want you to tell people one thing." He said, "What's that?" I said, "I want you to tell them that you're nervous."
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Why?" I said, "Because they are just as nervous for you as you are to give it." You know what I'm saying? So because they're gonna feed off that energy. So when you get up there, just tell them, "Hey, I'm a little nervous. I don't do this quite often." Say that, and I guarantee you, the rest of it's gonna go off without a hitch. And guess what? He did amazing. So
Yeah.
again, I think that sometimes when you tell people, "Hey, I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm nervous doing this." You know what I'm saying? It's like, I mean, even with Instagram, like, I don't know if I want to go on Instagram or if I want to do LinkedIn just yet, or whatever. And again, I think we'll talk about that when we're done here. But I don't know. I do want to do one of them, but keep this going on that framework or
Yeah.
whatever. You know what I mean? Because again, like, you're good at the business stuff, but man, that mental shit, I got that all day.
And I did TikTok live last week, and that was nerve wracking for me because I don't know the platform. And there's a whole separate app that goes along with it. And
Okay.
so, and that one is kind of jarring because you're sitting there watching 100 people have joined your Instagram. Like, holy, 100 people have joined your Instagram thing. You're like, holy shit, I'm on. And I got to make
100
this.
people on Instagram or TikTok.
I mean, TikTok. 100
Okay.
people are watching you right now live. Holy shit, none of them are reacting. Oh my God. And so it can be really nervous, but I'm like, okay, I just got to get practice in that realm and understand that if I'm doing a TikTok live, unless I have a second camera set up, I'm going to, because it doesn't necessarily neatly integrate with StreamYard yet. There's a certain level where I have to get access to the stream key or whatnot, but I'm gonna have to learn the platform. I can't just use StreamYard to make it work. And
Mm.
so I got to learn the nuances of that platform and not be freaked out by the fact that the reach is all the users, all the reach is literally potentially all the people that are on TikTok at the same time,
Hmm.
as opposed to my friends list or the people that are in kind of our network on social media. Even if we make it public, it still kind of shows it to your network of people.
Gotcha.
And so that's kind of where we're at. And so I got to get comfortable with doing that.
Hmm.
And I found TikTok is a little bit more reactive when it comes to marketing stuff, because
Okay.
they're conditioned to think that any kind of marketing is you're trying to manipulate and rip people off, and you got to combat some of that too. So it's tailoring the message and making sure that I'm showing up the way I want to show up. But I can't let wanting to show up a specific way. I can't let that get in the way of just showing up.
Got
So,
you.
but I
I
hope
like
that
that.
makes sense.
No, yeah, it does, dude.
So
I'm writing this shit down right now.
so this is where we're at, y'all. And I think a lot of times, the biggest barrier to your success is you and the doubts that you're carrying around in your mind. And
And not just your mind, but your actions, yo.
your actions.
Not
Yeah.
just your mind, but your actions. Because sometimes you can still do shit and not believe in yourself and still go do it anyway and build that belief up. But that belief is only built up through repetition.
Yeah.
Period. And again, for myself, I don't do, and I tell people all the time, listen, if you want to record me and we're doing some stuff, that's one thing. I don't record shit. I put it out and that's it. Wherever it goes, I put it on that space and then we're out. I'm out on that. Like you like to toy around with it. Let's look at this. Man, fuck that. I ain't doing all that mess. No.
Well, a part of my business is videography, so I have to edit, and so that's kind of what I'm drawn
I'm
to.
not editing shit. And again, like you said, I don't care if it's right. I just want it out right now.
Yeah.
That's literally how I look at it. I need the information out now.
You know, we talked about it a couple of episodes ago. That's kind of how Prince released his music. You know, the engineer said his creativity came out like a sneeze. Like it just,
Oh, what's that mean?
it just uncontrolled, boom, it comes out, and that's how it is. He didn't do a lot of takes. He didn't do a lot of retakes or whatnot. Just record it as it is, leave the mistakes in, and ship it.
No shit.
And so he
I
didn't.
think you did tell me about that.
He didn't dwell in that, what she called it. She called it little picky little cokehead shit about this specific riff being right and stuff. He didn't care about that kind of stuff. He just wanted, and he would do he would do all his own instruments. He'd do all the vocalizations and everything, create the whole thing, and boom, over the course of one night, boom, in the studio recording it, boom, done. Back to the plane, back to the tour bus, we're back on the road. So if he wasn't, like I said, if he wasn't on a date, if he wasn't performing, he was recording and making music. And so he would show up, lay it out, and then move on. He's like, he didn't obsess over that stuff. And I think one of the things that people don't know about music in the 80s was there was a lot of people that were trying to be really super precise with the new wave sounds and stuff. And they wanted to get it just right. And so they would spend, 3 hours trying to get a guitar riff down. And he didn't do that. And, they're like, that's why they're like, for whatever reason, he said that's why he preferred to work with women as engineers, because they didn't give him a lot of friction. They just worked with what his vision was and helped him create his vision, as opposed to implement their own view of things. But
right. So like if you work with somebody like Dr. Dre, for instance, your shit ain't gonna never come out because that motherfucker, he a perfectionist.
yeah,
And everything has to sound like auditorily perfect. It has to be Michelangelo in his ears, where Prince obviously didn't give a fuck. He's like, hey, does it sound good? Perfect, put it out.
Yeah. And the other side is the majority of his work never is going to see the light of day. It's in his vault. It won't ever come out.
Oh, wow.
So they said he has he could release it once a year and almost have an album come out once a year for 40 years.
Dude.
So that's how much stuff he had. But, he was picky about the songs that would make the album, but he would create them and just boom, boom, boom. And he was creating a song a night. And so that's just how he worked. And so for them, it's like, don't try to overcomplicate the delivery of it. Just pack it and ship it and get it done. The vision, the feeling is more important than it being perfect. Now, if you're actually giving people real technical information that they need precise measurements on, that's a different thing. You can't just freestyle. You just can't get up there and freestyle that shit. But anything else, any other creative endeavor, It doesn't have to be perfect. It's got to be you. Show up as yourself. Don't try to show up as an overproduced version of yourself.
Okay.
I had a client that would do that where when the camera's on, they would turn into this really buttoned up version of themselves and it wasn't coming off authentic. And through practice, they've gotten to the point where it comes out that when you see the videos, them authentically, realistically.
Okay.
Them. So.
Okay. So when does that happen then?
When does what happen?
Well, when do they come out authentically them?
Through practice. Because initially, and that was kind of the feedback, like I need to see the same personality that I see when we're having a conversation. I need to see that when the camera comes on.
Right.
Because that's the engaging person. The more academic version of you isn't as engaging, and that's why the videos aren't connecting as well. Show the audience who I see. Just give them the same information. Because a lot of people obsess about this perfectionism thing, even with marketing. When I'm doing some companies marketing, they're worried about how professional is this going to look. Listen, if they're buying creative services from you, it doesn't matter how professional it is. It needs to show that you have the ability to create the vision that they want.
Yeah.
If you're too corporate, people aren't going to connect with it. It'll just look like some generic. It look like everything else on the internet. That's just my take on it. Some marketing companies see it different. They want you to, we're going to have this color palette and this is going to be perfect and professional everywhere. And even the messaging sounds stale, lifeless, listless, boring. You know, no personality, no personality, no components of who the person is that started this company with their own blood, sweat, and tears. What's the difference between me going to Baker's and getting the same thing? You know, and so I think a lot of times people end up sacrificing chunks of their personality when it comes to their business, where the reason why they started their business is they wanted to create a creative vision of doing business in the world. And so their business should be uniquely them. And by stripping out who that component is, you're stripping out who the identity of the business. And I can get that anywhere. If every burger tastes like McDonald's, then why go anywhere but McDonald's?
And that'd be gross.
Yeah. So that's what my take is on this.
That'd be fucking disgusting.
So if you, and maybe this is the plug for me. If you link up with me as a marketing consultant, I'm more in the creative vision side of who you really are and connecting with your audience and stuff like that. The professionalism, that sounds great and everything. I'm more in tune with, does this align with who you are? Is this your personality? Does this business contain your personality? So,
okay. I love that, man. So yeah, so shit, how about we close on that, champ?
Yeah, let's call it a day because I got a meeting I got to get ready for. I got to go teach somebody how to podcast.
Oh, nice. There you go. Look at it. See that? That's how this works, man. Well, like I said, man, for the last 101 days or whatever, it has been it's been something, man. And again, even with the person that you're working on or working with, let me know if I need to go in and help them with the, I mean, again, you have the technical part of it or whatever, but the showing up every day, the consistency, let me know if I need to go in and show them how to do that part. Okay. Or whatever, you know what I'm saying? I mean, because I'm telling you, dude, it's depending on what you're trying to do and depending on what you want the end objective to look like, man, it's going to be two totally different things.
Yeah, showing up is the most important thing, and I think
that's it.
That's the lesson that needs to come from this. You get better through showing up. Your doubt's never going to go away. Your self-doubt's never going to go away. The only thing that you can do is keep showing up, regardless of what the numbers say, what the analytics say. Just show up and do the thing. That's what's next. That's what's now. That's the now what part. Now you keep doing it. Now you keep showing up in a way that you want to show up.
That's it. So my objective is to build my practice out and also build out my my book club or whatever. So those are the two things that I am going to focus on doing or whatever. So I need to talk to you right quick.
Yep.
And so yeah, go ahead and run this out, man.
All right, so this has been, hopefully you guys got something out of it. We had a good time. We'll be back at y'all hopefully next week if I'm back in town. We'll see how this goes. I might be doing it from a out of town location.
Okay.
But I'm Brian.
Fearless here.
All right, thanks for tuning in. Talk to y'all later.
That part.
Peace.